Good afternoon. I'm Frank Rasboni of Park Bioservices. I'm here today to talk about leak testing, and we're going to talk about 3 different methods of leak testing. The first of which is using a hand spray bottle, which is just going to be a generic hand spray bottle. And in the spray bottle we'll have a mix of soapy water. There's no specific mix. It's usually just a couple of squirts of soap detergent, dish detergent in the water. That's all you need. Okay? So, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to cap the exhaust port. In this case, it's inside the isolator. I'm going to screw this type of cap into the outlet that's inside the isolator. That will block off the exhaust and allow pressure to build up. Okay, the exhaust port now is blocked, and what you're going to see both on the MagnaHelic, and moreover on the front, you're going to see pressure build up. You want the pressure to build up until the arms are rigid. I'm going to go ahead and crank up the pressure a little bit to get it there a little bit quicker. Okay, now you can notice that the arms are fully extended. I'm going to take the spray bottle and spray all along the front frame. Okay, then you're going to spray enough to let it drip down the entire side. And if there was a leak, you would see bubbles coming out of that area. Okay, if you find on the frame that there are leaks, what you're going to do is just to tighten up a couple of the screws in that area. That should correct the problem. If it doesn't correct the problem, you may have to remove the entire the frame and reseat the gasket. That's very unusual, but it does happen occasionally. So you'd either have to reseat or replace the gasket in that case. All right. The next thing that we're going to do is to check around the cuff. You can spray right around the cuff, and you should be able to see if there are any bubbles coming out of the cuff line. You also want to check the fingertips the same way. All right. So once we get that done, now the next thing what we're going to do is that the inner door should be open, and we're going to test the outer door. Okay. And kind of the same method as the front. We're just going to spray very liberally along the whole thing, and you will see bubbles coming out if there is a leak. All right? And in this case, we're not seeing any bubbles. The water just flowed all the way around, so there are no leaks, so we've verified that it's got a good seal. Okay, at this point, what we want to do is to turn down the pressure, and we're going to release the cap, release the pressure, and open the outer door. Okay, so now we verified that the inner door is sealed. I'm going to pop the outer door open, and I'm going to repeat the procedure on the inner door. Actually, the inner door is a little bit easier. It really becomes... You're just going to spray all 4 corners and make sure that you get enough water in there. If you see any bubbling, you need to do 1 or 2 things. You need to either adjust the clamp and make it a little bit tighter, or oftentimes what you have to do is just tease the gasket out with your fingertips. And that's enough to get a good seal. All right, so now the next method is really very much the same as the first method. We call it the standing 15-minute count. We get the pressure all the way up. We make sure that the arms are all the way rigid. We make sure that the exhaust ports are sealed. And then we turn the blower motor off. I'm not going to do it in this case. When we turn the blower motor off, we let the isolator stand for 15 minutes. If you start to see any loss of pressure where the arms start to go down like that, you know you have a slow leak. Then you have to kind of go in and check more thoroughly. That's a good, quick and dirty test. It's not really conclusive. You know, some people leave their isolators inflated for as much as 24 hours to check them by that method. We use it as a manufacturing step. It tells you very quickly whether or not you have a leak. So then once you determine that you have a leak, you kind of narrow down the areas that the leak is in, and we'll go ahead with the third type of leak testing, which is helium leak testing. And the helium leak testing requires a couple of pieces of equipment, a helium leak seeker like this, and a helium tank. And that's basically all you need. So on the helium leak seeker, you have a couple of features. Okay, you're going to turn the power on, and you can select your gas group. Now, it is possible to use other gases besides helium. I have found that helium works about the best, so I've stuck with helium. On the back of the machine, it gives a full list and what gas group it is, but I just happen to know that helium is gas group 1. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on group 1. The next thing that you have is the level that you want to test at. Okay, it goes 5, 4, 3. 5 being the most sensitive, 4 being the medium range, and 3 being the least or lowest range of sensitivity. So why would you have the 3 ranges? Why is it important? The top range, if you have a very persistent, really fine leak, you want to be on that top range. And that will really help you zero in on where the leak is. The problem is that once you started testing multiple isolators, you're going to have background helium in the air. And it'll become very hard to discriminate where the leak is coming from. So what I found the most useful setting is to turn it down to 4. And that gives a nice medium setting. It's still very sensitive. However, it's not overly sensitive that will pick up background helium. All right. So again, I've got the instrument set now. So I'm going to just put that down for a second, and I'm going to talk about introducing helium into the isolator. Okay. So the blower motor is going to be on. We're going to take the helium tank. We're going to put the hose from the helium tank into the mouth of the blower motor, and we're going to introduce a short burst of helium. Okay? And what you'll notice is that the helium will hyperinflate the isolator. It'll be the glove arms will become very rigid, and that will give us enough. That's enough, just a short burst. Like if you count to 5 slowly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, shut the helium off, and then go ahead and check with the helium leak seeker. Okay? So very much like we did with the spray bottle, we're going to check the whole entire face of the isolator, all the way around. And if you hear like a couple little blips, we'll just slow down in that area and keep going over until you make sure that there's no leak. Again, if there is a leak, you can tighten up the screws, but you might find that you have to do a little bit more. You might have to reseat the gasket. That's entirely possible. But once you've gone around the entire frame very thoroughly and very slowly, you can then turn to the cuff rings. Okay? And what you do is just kind of pull the glove out of the way and then go all the way around the cuff ring, and that will verify that there's no leaks at the seam between the glove and the cuff, and then check each finger and thumb. Okay? Just stick the probe right in there, and that will tell you whether or not there's a leak. Okay? So the next thing we're going to do is to verify that the doors have a good seal. So I'm going to go ahead and check around the entire seam to see if there's any leaks. So all 4 sides, up the back by the hinge, slowly. Okay? You've verified now that there are no leaks. The next thing that we have to do is we're going to have to shut the isolator down, completely evacuate all the helium, and open the outer door with the inner door closed, and we'll verify the seal. Okay, now we have the outer door open. We've verified that the inner door is closed. We've reintroduced helium into the isolator, the same procedure, a little 5 count burst of helium should be sufficient. And we're now going to go and verify the seal along the inner door. Going to go along the whole entire frame and verify that there is no leaks. And that is all there is for the leak testing.